What is up, everybody? Welcome to the SnapCast podcast, episode 81, with your hosts, Andy, TechFour, and myself, Brad O'Brien. If this is your first time tuning in, we are a Magic the Gathering podcast. We focus primarily on MTG finance, and we like to say that, we're geared towards casual players that have a competitive interest in MTG finance. What's going on, Andy? You don't look anything like Cooley, and I think that's a compliment.
Well, hold on. We have about the same amount of hair.
This is true. You're right. In the hair department, you're comparable.
That's about it. He's definitely much better looking than me in all other ways. But
I don't know. You have a sweet looking apartment there.
Well, I get taken care of pretty well. So,
did that come with Zoom, or did you pay extra for that?
Just a picture I found on the internet.
So, when was the last time you were actually on the cast? I know you were in the background cooking that crazy beef stew concoction a few months ago, but other than you've done a lot of gameplay streaming?
Yep. I've done a lot of that. Actually, on the podcast, it's been a minute. I know that. Because, I was on twice, I think. Twice, maybe 3 times. And then we just got into the mood of, I would just cook. And it would be done when you guys get done. We just went that way. So, it's definitely been a minute, for sure.
We definitely got spoiled. Being able to finish a cast and go downstairs and get drunk off of beef stew.
It's so funny. So just for the viewers, I experiment with a lot of stuff. And that beef stew, I brought a bunch of what do you call them? Stocks. And I didn't use any of them. I just used beer. And I'm like, this is so good. And then actually eating it was like, wow. IPA wasn't really the right choice for this. So I remade it for a coworker of mine. He was helping me out when I first got injured before my surgery. So I'm like, I'll cook you a meal to make up for it. And I went half and half, and his greatest feedback was too much beer. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just let this part of it
go. You're pretty big on the beer in there. So one of the things that we, I don't want to leave an elephant in the living room. Obviously, Michael Cooley has been a co-host of this podcast for as long as it's existed. And I will not say that he's entirely retired, but between all of us going back to our 9-to-5s and actually it's amazing how much of your life it sucks up when you have to travel to and from work. Andy doesn't really experience that, but
I walk down a staircase. Not right now, I don't, but I used
to. Mike is also preparing for the launch of Diablo 2 Resurrected, which is just going to be huge in his world, and the amount of time that he puts into his highly produced content over there. I didn't want to see the dude burn out, and I've been playing way more gigs, and so we were trying to find times that worked. The last couple of Thursdays, we couldn't get it together to record, and honestly, it was never good for me on Thursdays because I always have a gig right now, a standing gig playing in the band on Thursdays. So it worked out that Andy is basically a captive audience right now. He's trapped in his house, and he can explain why, but he's been messaging me for the last few weeks, dude, have you seen this card move? Have you seen this card move? And with our relationship with the streaming and being on the podcast before, it was a no-brainer for me to say, dude, you want to do a podcast with me on Wednesday night? And here we are. So you've kind of alluded to it, and I can see your crutches there, but...
Yeah, I have them leaned up against my plant. Don't worry about that. It totally looks good if you don't squint. So basically, I tore my ACL and LCL, I don't know, probably about a month ago now. So kind of been stuck at home. Just had, actually probably been more than a month. Probably 3 weeks ago I had surgery. So it's probably been 7 weeks. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of stuck here. I'm lucky I'm able to get to the shop every now and then. I get people that are willing to give me rides, but for the most part, I'm here. So it works out well for me.
I was so I was so impressed with your commitment to being able to play at the shop that you bought a chair and had it sent to the shop, our local LGS, so that you could get in and have a zero gravity chair to play and have your leg elevated. That's a commitment to the game.
It worked too. It was great. It was so funny because like the chair is so low that like getting into it's hard. So they just set me up at we have like a raising table, one of those guys. We just put it at the lowest setting. I sat there and I played 5 rounds of Magic and I didn't move once. Like my buddy Dan, of course our buddy Dan, I should say, he came up to me halfway through. He's like, "You want something at Subway?" I'm like, "Yep, here's my card, here's my order, please." Like really appreciate it. And I just played Linear Control for like 5 hours, just sitting in a chair.
I was going to ask, what did you play and how did it go?
Yeah, so I played Lantern. Pretty much like I built the deck originally. I love the deck. I love the deck like when it first became a thing, well before it was any good. I'm talking years ago. Because I'm just a degenerate person. But also like where there's a Saga printing, I feel the deck's really underrated. And I think we could probably talk about the deck a little bit more later. But I built the deck, a lot of it I get to joke around. Our shop owner, of course, obviously he wants to go home at night. He doesn't have any employees. He runs everything himself. Real good guy. But like I like to joke around with him and be like, I'm gonna play this deck. I'm gonna go to time every single round just to make you stay an extra hour. And then of course that week was like, I can't move, like I'm not doing anything between rounds, so I'll just play this. End up losing 1 match all night, so
that's right. To Death and Taxes?
Death and Taxes.
I do think that he occasionally watches the podcast, so maybe he'll catch this. Be like, that's me, Dalton.
Yep.
Did you? So I was there. I was spinning my wheels for a second, trying to remember his name because I'm a terrible human, and I don't remember people's names. I also don't remember Magic cards. I had looked at Emergent Sequence like 6 times this week, just thinking that card is so good. That card is so good. And then I'm like, what was the name of that Farseek variant that I liked? And I would like have to dig and like search for a basic land and make it like.
There's a lot of cards that say search for a basic land. Because I know like I have to Google it and I go to the Gatherer search whenever I don't have it. And you were scrolling for a long time.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think this card is going to be an EDH staple. And I wonder if this works. Hey, this almost works. I'm looking at.
So you mentioned it to me, and I'll pull it up myself so I can read it. It's Farseek mana. It's not Farseek. I'm not going to say it is, but it's Farseek mana. It's 1 and a green for a sorcery. It says search your library for a basic land, put it in the battlefield tapped. Already decent. Doesn't hit fetch lands. Doesn't hit triomes. Doesn't hit the check to see if you have 2 basic. Like doesn't hit anything special, but hits basics. That land becomes a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature that's still a land. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each land you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn. So 90% of the time, right, unless we're doing some shenanigans, you get a 2/2 for 2 that taps for a color of mana of your choice, essentially.
Yep.
There's a lot of good green ramp spells, but this very well might make the list. Like I think you kind of got something here, especially in 3 CMC commanders. A lot of times you want to be casting your commander on 3, so cards like Cultivate and Kadama's Reach aren't quite as good.
You want to have your ramp on 2.
Right.
Yeah. I also think that it's not unreasonable thinking about this in EDH or Pioneer or even Modern, although Modern may be a stretch, that you play some sort of fetch, a Fabled Passage or something, play a Fabled Passage, crack the Fabled Passage, play this, put another land into play, and you get a 3/3.
And I mean, what is that? Three lands coming into the battlefield?
Yeah.
You know what else likes three lands coming into the battlefield?
That card that you already told me you wanted to talk about today.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of synergies with this. Like just at its base value, I think it's a good card, but there's a lot of synergy there too, and a lot of times, I mean, I'll just come out. Obviously, you guys know we're talking about Omnath, Locus of Creation, but a lot of times with Omnath, you really would love to have that third land drop. Obviously, the 2 is easy. You play Omnath, you play fetch land, you crack fetch land. But that third one's kind of tough sometimes. And just playing like your normal ramp spells to like find another land to trigger that ability to obviously hit your opponent, kill their planeswalkers is kind of rough because like essentially now in your deck is a card that doesn't really contribute to the board other than ramp, which isn't really good enough a lot of the times. But with this, like, I'm going to get my land, I'm going to trigger that ability, and I get a 3/3. Like, they're the same thing. If they deal with the land or the 3/3, they deal with both. But it makes that a lot easier.
Well, and if you're building a deck that way, just having the land into play probably got you some of the value you were looking for. I think that it was probably clever on Wizard's part to make that creature a fractal and not an elemental.
Yes.
Because
that was Risen Reef.
Mm-hmm. We could dream. Anyway, really, we just got sort of onto that tip thinking about. I really like that card. I think that card is not a 13-cent card. I think that if you can get foils of that card for under 40 cents right now, it's kind of stupid. As a 2-mana ramp spell, I think it makes the cut in EDH. Like you said, maybe not over Cultivate, but over some of the other 3-mana ramp spells that people tend to play in EDH.
Right, and beyond that, right? Like, it's an uncommon. We've seen some uncommons get expensive. It specifies fractal creatures with +1/+1 counters on it. That's very much a Strixhaven thing. That's not something that's just going to get reprinted into a core set. So if it catches on, like, there's only so many of those out there. Of course, what do we have? Strixhaven came out, and then Modern Horizons 2 came out right after.
Mm-hmm.
I think Strixhaven was still open pretty well, but not what it would have been if we didn't have Modern Horizons 2.
Geez, and if we didn't follow Modern Horizons 2 right up with Jumpstart Horizons or whatever that BS is on Arena, where they're basically, we've talked about that. Mike and I have talked about this, and I know you've heard these conversations. Talk about how long is it going to take to have Modern on Arena? Not long, when most of the cards in Modern are from Modern Horizons, and they just put all of the most playable Modern Horizons cards on Arena.
It's true. I still say we'll never have real Modern, or we won't for many, many years. But you're getting close. If they ever want to go just like light Modern, take out some of your historic things that aren't Modern legal.
Yeah,
you can play a lot of the top decks.
I mean, you can get damn close. Speaking of which, I played what was arguably, a tier 1 deck that same night that you played Annual Control Lantern. Yeah. I played the Pure Steel Paladin deck and got destroyed by Red Black Luris. I got destroyed by Jund Cascade.
Yep.
I got destroyed by. Oh, that wasn't the night that I played against Glimpse of Tomorrow. What else did I play? I might have gone just O2 drop. Although I feel like, no, then I beat Goblins. Oh, yay. Good for me. I felt like a dick when I played my Shadow Spear. And it was like, I'm going to go get my Shadow Spear and put it into play. And yeah, you have no shot now.
Yep.
But Modern is definitely the Modern Horizons format.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've been saying for a very long time that there is 3 decks in Modern that are much higher than everybody else. Now we'll talk a little bit later that I think that's changing.
Oh, yeah.
But originally, it was you had Blue Red Delver, which played Dragon Race Chandler and Murktide Regent on Holy Heat. You had the Black Red deck that you're talking about. Everyone's calling it the New Jund, with Ragavans, with Dothi Voidwalker. And then you have the Cascade into Crashing Footfalls deck, which, of course, Shardless Agent now being legal in that format makes that deck very viable.
God
And
damn.
and of course, Crashing Footfalls itself is Modern Horizons 1. Like it's still in the Modern Horizons block anyway.
Yeah. Now they didn't put those on Arena. They did put one Cascade card on Arena. I don't know which one it was. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But they didn't put the other Cascade payoffs like that, right? They didn't put Crashing Footfalls on Arena.
I couldn't tell you.
Can you even check that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, probably you can open up Arena and then look through, but select not collected or collected if you have any. I haven't really been on Arena, so I really couldn't tell you.
No, you haven't been feeling the Arena?
No, I'm not a big fan of Standard.
Yeah.
And realistically, I mean, I was big into Arena at the beginning, but like once they started going down the historic road, like for me, that was Arena was great because I could grind every day, and I would get every card. I could play any deck, and I wouldn't have to put any money into it. I put some in to begin with, but then like I was caught up and I was good with every set. Then historic as a format came out, and I was like, I can't do that anymore, and I don't want to grind anymore, and I don't want to put money into something that like I can't resell those cards.
Well, and there you go. That's part of why we're here, and largely, you know, it's interesting. Mike focused a lot on legacy and vintage, and sort of dabbled into Commander, but the idea that paper cards have tangible value, that you can use them for a while and then move them on, is sort of the whole reason why this podcast starts to exist. We actually got a comment in the chat here from Braden who said, "Rip Moto." He's on board the train of Moto is going the way of the dodo. I think you're right. It's gonna be a significant amount of time before you have the brew ability of Modern. But if they keep releasing sets that just add staples into Arena, it is a much more enjoyable client to play on.
The client is so much better. The gameplay is so much better. Like, it's so much easier to use. Things make sense. I mean, just the game itself, because timing rules are different. Like, it's just a better game.
But
and I think, and I'm going to take your butt, and I'm going to use your butt. But I think the economy needs to change majorly before we can say Rip Moto. Because until I'm able to go on and say, okay, I'm going to build this deck and I'm going to play this deck as just like without grinding 6 months to get the cards to do it.
Yep.
I don't know. Like with Moto, I can pay a subscription fee, or I can just go on and buy the cards, and I could always sell them back later if I wanted to. Like, I have the ability to get the cards right off.
So it's funny. My butt was going to be based on a note that I made today in my sort of crib sheet here. I was looking at, so I noticed that zombie cards are starting to move. And in my search on like maybe zombie cards that weren't getting the consideration that they should get, I noted that Soul Diviner is a zombie. Do you know what that card is?
Soul Diviner. Nope.
So it was one from one of the recent Ravnica sets, and it's a Dimir card. Are you looking it up?
I'm looking it up right now. Soul Diviner, awesome. You said?
Soul Diviner.
Okay. Oh, this guy. Yeah. I remember playing him in Limited.
Right. So read the text of the card if you've got it up.
Yep. So It's a 2/3 for 2 mana. Dimir. It's blue-black. Creature zombie wizard has tap, remove a counter from an artifact, creature, land, or planeswalker you control. Draw a card.
So I saw this card today and I thought the same thing that I think every time I see the phrase remove a counter. This is going to be really good with a land.
Going with this.
That's
not where I thought you were going to go with this.
See, no. So here's the thing. I want to put this in a deck with Urza's Saga and Blast Zone.
Yep. Man, having Blast Zone with 0 counters would be so good sometimes.
I mean, when you're talking about a format full of rhinos and Urza's Saga tokens.
There's a reason why Engineered Explosives is like the most played sideboard card right now.
Oh my god, that card has also gone up like 50% in the last 2 weeks.
Traded mine yesterday. Felt really bad about it.
Excuse me?
I traded my Engineered Explosives yesterday. I felt not good about it at all.
Why? Why did you? So tell me why you did it.
Well, I traded that and a Snapcaster for a doubling season. And like the prices were spot on. And for me, like I want to play the doubling season in an EDH deck. And
yep.
I mean, that's a card no matter how many times it gets reprinted, and it did just get reprinted not too long ago.
Yep.
It's always going to be valuable. Engineered Explosives climbs and falls as the format demands it.
Absolutely. The format could change, and suddenly Chalice falls from its high pedestal and EE falls from its high pedestal. When EE just got reprinted in Double Masters, it was dollars.
Yep.
Now it's tens of dollars. And the original printing, and I can even look this up, but I think when I saw this today, I was amazed that my browser does not like opening the first link to TCG Player. I mean, $20 for the newer reprints, and the original printing.
Fifth Dawn.
Fifth Dawn.
I got that as low as 20. Market price is 28.
Yeah, heavily played 28, moderately played 38 by the end of the page. And
I will say I still have my Fifth Dawn copy.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. And you're right. Doubling Season is a card that never really loses. Let's see. Oh, we got Braden again in the chat. He's doing some research for us. He said that Bloodbraid Marauder, Throes of Chaos, and the First Sliver are cards, Cascade cards coming to Arena. And it took too long on Scryfall to figure that out.
Appreciate it, Braden.
So, Jesus, we were just talking about Engineered Explosives, the modern metagame, cards that are moving, and I lost my train of thought.
Well, so we were
Diviner.
talking about Soul Diviner. Soul
Diviner.
Diviner. I don't know how to read.
And I don't even remember how I got to Soul Diviner now, but I mean, I know how I got to Soul Diviner earlier today, but that was a card that, again, it just has great potential. Mike used to use this phrase all the time. It had an ear to the ground, like it was waiting for something to be broken. And when you can take the counter off of your Blast Zone and draw a card and use your Blast Zone to wipe away somebody's tokens, that's awesome. If you can take a counter off of your Urza's Saga, make an Urza's Saga token, and draw a card, that's pretty good. I mean, you're talking about running a Dimir card in a deck that has 6 or 7 brown lands to begin with, but it's interesting.
So I'm not sure if this is a raise, because Urza's Saga is pretty spicy. But let me ask you a question. Dark Ascension, Innistrad Dark Ascension had zombies that had counters. What counters were those?
Oh, so I started playing the game basically after Ascension rotated. So
Okay.
right after OG Innistrad.
So here's I'll
Give me a clue.
give you a hint. Kitchen Finks uses the same counters.
Why can I not think about it dies and it comes back with a +1/+1 or a -1/-1? It's a -1/-1 counter. What the hell is it
Yeah,
called?
I mean it's just a counter. I guess yeah. No, I have them mixed up. That one's persist. The ones from Innistrad were undying, but either way,
Ah, yeah.
same ability both ways. If you have a Gerald Messenger comes into the battlefield, they lose 2 life. It dies. Comes to the battlefield, they lose 2 life. It gets a +1/+1 counter on it. I would love to take that counter off and draw a card, so we can die again.
Yeah. Now you're talking about a 3 or 4 color deck, which I'm sure is right up your alley.
Well, I'm not talking about playing kitchen fix. I'm just talking blue black.
Yeah. Oh, we could
Just blue black
Murderous
zombies.
Redcap.
Yeah, I mean
Persist
you're
zombies.
playing. We're talking zombie tribal anyway. I mean that's what kind of why we're on zombies. Like there's definitely some synergy there with this guy just resetting all your death counters.
What's the guy in the red black sack deck? Like in Jund Sack? Mayhem Devil.
Yeah,
It's a devil, obviously. Anyway, spitballing. That's interesting. But how I got onto the reason why I even stumbled across Soul Diviner today was Champion of the Perished, which is the zombified Champion of the Parish, has caused a spike, I think, in a lot of other zombie cards. But I don't think people are necessarily right now moving on the real modern zombies, because most of those that are any good are already pretty high priced. Cryptgast and what's the one that people are using right now with the sack loop?
you talking grave crawling?
Gravecrawler, yeah. But I did notice today that Relentless Dead and Crypt Breaker are moving, and those are not really notable modern zombie cards. I don't really know that those have seen a whole lot of play in modern attempts at zombie builds. And so I went on this sort of journey of looking at what are other cards that might get played in a modern zombie deck that are recurring cards or somehow going to play well with Champion of the Perished. And I was looking at cards like Dread Wanderer and Dread Horde Butcher. Dread Wanderer obviously plays more into that comeback mechanic. And then I stumbled on, and we sort of talked about this a few minutes ago, the adventure, like the ugly step cousin of the adventure family, Murderous Rider. The redheaded stepchild of the adventure mechanic, Murderous Rider. We've got Brazen Borrowers and Bone Crusher Giants running all over modern and eternal formats, and Murderous Rider's not really seeing any love. Maybe it's because they're making awesome 2-mana black kill anything spells suddenly in the upcoming set. But Murderous Rider is a zombie knight, and it's a 2/3 creature with lifelink for 3. Or for 3 mana, it'll destroy a creature at the cost of 2 life. It also has that weird clause that if it leaves the battlefield, shuffle it into your library instead of putting it into your graveyard. I think Murderous Rider's a little underloved. I think that card's got places to go. But
No, I'd agree with you. One thing that this would be a home run, right? If it was still legal in standard,
yeah,
when the next set comes out. However, I mean, I'm with you. Like, It's not amazing. It's not a 1 mana removal spell. It's not a 2 mana removal spell. But and like even Brazen Borrower and Bone Crusher Giant has the 2 mana
Yeah, they got that.
ability. But it's still good, and it's still a card that you can play on either half or both halves in time. Doesn't like you can't play it with Luris, which is kind of unfortunate.
That's true. Pretty
But
much.
but what is it? $1.50 right now?
Yeah. I'm looking at it now, and it's between $1.42 and $1.70 for a
I mean,
regular
how
printing.
many black decks do you play that don't even have this in EDH?
Well, and so the other card that I sort of just intimated is Infernal Grasp. That's going to be printed in the next Innistrad set. That's 1 and a black instant. Destroy target creature. You lose 2 life. Dude, what are they doing? Like, these 3 cards are... I don't know if you can see the screen that I have up right now.
Yep.
Like, they've just previewed a handful of cards from this set that's coming out in September. This is the werewolf half of this Innistrad 2-set block. You know, because we don't actually have blocks, but this is clearly a 2-set block. 1 and a black, instant, destroy target creature. You lose 2 life. That's it. It's not non-black creature. It's not non-artifact creature. It's not creature less than 3 CMC or more than 4 CMC.
No, those are the obvious examples. We were talking go for the throat, Doomblade, Eliminate.
Heartless Act.
The fourth one is Heartless Act. I can't remember what the over 4 CMC is, what that's called.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, modern playable, yes. I mean, it's if you're not playing red and you want to play Terminate in your deck, now you can. 2 life is nothing. It's not Fatal Push, but it's still very good.
It's
very good for standard. Holy crap,
yeah.
is it good for standard?
Well, and one of the things that I remember talking about a couple of weeks ago was how, on one hand, you just mentioned Luris. You really have to look at pretty much everything now in a modern lens as, is it a Luris deck or isn't it? So, but the other half of that is things like the dragon that you exile a bunch of spells from the graveyard. God, I do not have a friggin' brain for card names right now. The blue guy, you Murktide Regent.
Oh yes, the new one. Yep.
Right? You can't push that guy.
No.
But you can Infernal Grasp it. And oh boy, doesn't that feel good.
Yeah, same with Fury. Same with Solitude. Like,
yeah, all of those things.
There are enough modern playable cards that you kind of need some other removal besides Fatal Push right now.
Right, and so you're on Path or Bust for most modern decks. This sort of gives black that catch-all answer. Like, this will answer everything that isn't indestructible. Braden is commenting that Play with Fire is just better shock. Like, not that people are dying to put shock in any deck. Even in Pioneer, they're playing either Magma Spray for the exile effect, or they're playing what's the other one that damage can't be prevented?
Oh yeah, I can't think of what it's called, but
and then Champion of the Perished, which obviously I'm a huge fan of Champion of the Parish, which is the human version of this card. This card is absolutely nuts in a tribe that is all about recursion.
Like, that's the thing. Champion of the Parish has been a modern staple since it was printed. And you get to play 2 humans a turn, because you got one with Vial, one from your hand.
At best, yeah.
I mean, zombies? Come on, man.
How much mana you got? How much mana you got? You can play zombies for days. Yeah. I think that this is actually going to be the better use of that ETB tribal mechanic by far. I'm interested to see what people do. And so sort of going down that rabbit hole, I would just say, and people are doing this. So to get back onto a finance focus, people are looking at werewolves. Like if you don't have your Mayors of Averbruck, you might want to have Mayors of Averbruck. Speaking of which, what's the green werewolf that just came out in the D&D set? Man, there are too many sets. And
I don't
so,
know anything that came out in the D&D set.
And on the one hand, and actually, I want you to talk about this because you were telling me about a video. I feel like the last 2 years have been so overwhelming, both in what's going on in the world, and at the same time, Magic's releasing 12 friggin' sets a year or something stupid. And then there are some sets that are just straight to Arena. And then there are all the supplemental products to Arena. And then all the supplemental secret layers. I feel bad. Like, I put it on myself that I can't remember all of the cards that have come out in the last few years. People tell me, oh, I'm playing this commander. I'm like, I've never heard of it. They're like, really? It was the face card of Strixhaven. I'm like, what was Strixhaven?
Face card of Jumpstart Remasters.
So I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to feel guilty for not remembering the names of all these cards, but I feel like I've been overwhelmed by them. And you told me earlier you saw another famous sort of Magic personality talking about that same thing?
Yeah, so I'll come back to that in just a second, because while we're on the zombie theme and werewolf theme, you talked about a bunch of cards that you want. I guess this is a time to talk about the way I look at finance is a little different in that I'm more of a competitive player that wants to get cards while they're cheap to play them. I don't want to have to pay a bunch of money later, but I'm not necessarily someone that like buys a ton of cards just to try to flip them and make money.
Right.
So one of my picks when it comes to zombies, and I mean, I just bought 12 of them, so I guess I am planning on probably flipping some if they go up. Card that's been printed a lot, Zombie, just came into Modern with Modern Horizons 1 last year, is Carrion Feeder. And we're talking about the recursion stuff.
Yeah.
Carrion Feeder is a free sacrifice outlet that's already replaced every other free sacrifice outlet in pretty much every deck that wanted it. Not that it's seeing a lot of play in Modern right now, but definitely did originally. Could come back with more zombies. But also, like, you can get Scourge copies for like 40 cents. I'm not saying every one of these cards is going to spike up and be really expensive. It's been printed too many times for that. But there's only one printing in Old Border.
Right. There's only one original printing.
And, I mean, if it goes up to $2, I'd rather pay $1 for my playset than $8.
Oh, there's an F&M promo.
The F&M promo is a little expensive, or a little bit more expensive, I should say.
Yeah.
But everything else is under $1. And the Scourge copies, you get them for, what did I say, 40 cents?
Yeah. I mean, they're all under 50 cents. Oh, I'm sorry. The dual decks Phyrexia versus the Coalition is 85 cents.
Well, don't pick that one. They just about all have. I mean, there's 2 different arts. Like,
I was just going to say, I do think it's interesting that the Modern Horizons and Mystery Booster arts are awful.
So bad.
I mean, in comparison. At the same time, I don't think that even the Scourge art is great. It's classic.
Yep.
I love it. Braden is trying not to out me by commenting in the chat that the card I was talking about a second ago is Werewolf Pack Leader. He just texted me.
But that good point. Going back to what we're talking about, there was the professor. Of course, everyone knows the professor. But he put out a video today, and I don't remember if it was just like in the screen or if it was the actual video title. But it was just called Magic Overload, and he was talking about how many times or how many different magic products they are printing nowadays, especially compared to how many products they printed years ago, and like the last 2 years, it has skyrocketed so high. And I mean, you look at everything, right? Like the secret layers, there's a ton of those. You have all these supplemental products. Commander decks, do they cost $20? Do they cost $40? Depends on the set, and we don't know why. There was 14.
Why?
The mono blue Teferi, that the Planeswalker, there was 14 different art styles that you could get him in. Like, you can buy booster packs, you can buy set packs, you can buy collector packs, you can buy VIP packs. VIP is obviously one separate thing, but still, like, every set has at least 3 different booster packs you can buy. Like, how do you keep up with this? And with Jumpstart Remastered, or whatever they're calling it, that went directly to Arena, like, how do you keep up with this stuff? It's crazy. I remember talking to everybody when the D&D set came out, right? Like,
yeah,
everyone said, "Oh, we have a new set already?" Everyone was really excited when it was spoiled last year, when they're like, "Hey, this is next year's plan. We're going to have a D&D set." And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." And then it came out and everyone's like, "Oh, really? Oh, didn't you notice?"
Yeah. I wonder if there are actually a bunch of people that love D&D that are snapping up this D&D set, because I don't hear any Magic players talking about it.
It was interesting because I went and drafted last night.
Oh.
And we did Modern Horizons 2 last night. The week before, or Modern Horizons 2. I don't know if I said Modern Masters. But the week before, they drafted
Adventures in the Forgotten Realms.
Yes, and I don't remember who I was talking to. It was someone that was there, and they said, like, there was just a ton of people coming out of the woodwork that, like, we never see at our shop. It was just like, oh, we get to draft D&D. I'm coming. So I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people that are really excited about it. It's just not your average competitive Magic player. Yeah.
Like, and I ordered. So one of the things that I'm trying to do as a, sort of humans player in Modern is I see a card that I think might have potential in humans. I try and snap off 4 in foils as soon as I see them cheap. So Braden reminded me it was Werewolf Pack Leader is the green 3/3. And I ordered those just on the hope that maybe they'd be cool. It has Tactics. If you attack with it and any other creatures that equal 6 or more power, you draw a card. I think if Esper Sentinel is not the card draw that humans wants, I don't know that Pack Leader is, but Pack Leader is much more aggressive. But there's nothing else in that set that interests me. There's absolutely nothing else that I'm thinking about as a competitive Magic player is going to make any deck. And so since that set has come out, which I haven't drafted or played or seen anybody play any of those cards, they released all of those cards onto Arena, which just fills up my head, right? Here's all of these Modern Horizons and Modern Horizons 2, and we're not even going to have, I think, on this podcast the conversation about digital only cards that are never going to exist in paper. I don't want to deal with that. We want to talk about.
They're not worth anything. So why would we talk about it? It's not our place.
That's it. There's no MTG finance purview about those cards other than if they're literally killing the game, they could fuck us. Pardon my language.
Right.
So they, I was thinking, oh, that doesn't look like there's anything in this set. Oh, they're putting all those cards on Arena. Jeez. Oh, I would love to be able to just brew on Arena, but I don't have the wild cards, and I'm not going to do what it takes to get the wild cards. And then not even a week or two after AFR is in paper and people are drafting it, they're like, oh, by the way, in September 12th, you're going to have probably one of the best 2-mana black removal spells ever printed. You're going to have one of the best 1-mana zombies ever printed. You're going to have the best shock variant ever printed. And those are just the first 3 cards that we're previewing. and it's 2 uncommons and a rare. Like, so I'm thinking about cards that haven't even come out yet. I'm totally ignoring the cards that are in between, and I'm looking back at cards that came out 2 weeks ago thinking I'm not interested in them. Where am I at as a Magic player? I understand why Cooley's like, I'm going to go do the Diablo thing.
Oh, I get you. I totally get you. Like,
so
I mean, the entire D&D set, like, you have the Book of Exalted Deeds, and beyond that, I don't care. Like, that's the only card that I'm, like, paying any attention to at all.
So are you looking at that as a modern player or as a pioneer player? What's the play there?
I mean, mostly as modern. I don't think it's good enough for modern. I really don't. But it's just like, it's the only card that I can, like, point to that's like, oh, okay, that does a thing. That's kind of neat. Everything else I look at and it's like, okay.
I'm probably being mean. Like, some of the creature lands are cool. Braden asked if the lower power of Adventures of the Forgotten Realms bodes well for the Unlimited Universe stuff coming with Lord of the Rings and Warhammer. If the cards are low power, is it hard to complain about outside intellectual properties? It's an interesting question. Go ahead.
So I don't think so. To me, I don't think power level matters too much. Now, I will say, like, obviously, we're always going to talk about the first time they did this with whatever that zombie show was that Mike loved so much. I'm sorry, what is it? Walking Dead. That's what
yes, it's The Walking Dead. See, I remember that. That
was huge, and that
has social salience.
Right, and well, the thing is, like, clearly Wizards has realized they made a big mistake, and they're somewhat willing to rectify that. And we'll talk about that. But, like, even when that was being spoiled, a lot of people were really upset. But then, like, everyone, like, there was the power level thing where everyone's like, well, this is only legal in Commander and Legacy, whatever. And then the last card got printed. I think that might have been the Rick Grimes or whatever it was. And also it was like, oh, this card's actually really good. Now we're really mad.
Now we're really mad because this could be a Legacy playable card.
So, to me, power level does matter in a way. However, more importantly is that they have promised within 6 months of any card that they make, they are going to reprint that card in a normal Magic, whatever. There's a bunch of questions on how they do it. I'm assuming it's going to be something like the Godzilla cards where you'll have the name of whatever Lord of the Rings guy we're talking about, a Magic name. Yeah. And then you don't have to worry about, like, the playing 8 copies because you're not allowed to do that. Like, it'll be a little bit obvious. But as long as they give meaningful reprints, I'm totally fine with this. Like, and I don't think power level matters too much. The thing that'll be annoying is, depending on legality, right? If they print Aragon, for example, and the guy is the greatest human of all time, if he is legal in formats besides just like Legacy and Commander, and even, I mean, I guess Legacy doesn't matter too much to most people anymore. But if he's legal in like Modern, Pioneer, Standard, before the reprint comes out, that could be a problem. That could be a big problem, especially for like the top of the top competitiveness, if he is strong enough. Now, if it's like, you can only play this in Legacy and EDH until the actual printing or the reprinting, whatever they're going to call it, I'm fine with it, and I don't think power level matters too much.
Yeah, I wish that they would have just. Yeah, I guess I don't want to say silver border them, but I agree with you. I like that they finally recognize that they probably made a mistake. They pissed enough people off. So they're going to give an outlet, a way to put some more supply into the market they're going to put a supply into the market that isn't necessarily branded with an IP that might have some negative externality. Like a lot of the people complained about The Walking Dead because Negan was such a vile character on the show that they literally didn't want to see a card Negan on the EDH table. So I think that they're sort of covering their ass and saying, yeah, you're right. They might print an Aragon in Secret Lair or whatever that product is. And then 6 months later, it's, you know, the unknown king or something is the whatever. With the Godzilla thing, so this is Jason Clark asking what's wrong with the Godzilla plan. I don't think that either Andy or I or anybody has a problem with what they did with Godzilla.
No.
The thing with the Godzilla plan is if they're doing it after the fact, they have to have the licensing to reprint that name sort of in perpetuity. So like, you know, there's King Ghidorah is a card, or I mean, what's one that I might actually know the name of? But basically, if they go to reprint those cards in the future, they can just give Gyruda the magic name. You know, they can reprint a Gyruda card, and it won't have the Godzilla associated card name on it. Because they only get those licensing for the time that they print the set. So go ahead.
Sorry, let me just jump in. One of the things that I was trying to talk about was, I guess I didn't explain it well, is when they spoiled that they were going to do this, they never explained how. And they had only said that they're going to print, I'm using examples of making up names. They're going to print Aragon, they're going to print the Unknown King 6 months later, or within the next 6 months. But they never explained like how they were going to do that, how the cards would be together. They just explained you can only play 4 copies total. That can be for this, or a combination. So a lot of people freaked out and said, well, how am I going to know that this card is actually equal to this card? Like Finhorn Elves and Llanowar Elves are the same, but like I can play 4 copies of each.
Yeah.
And I say Godzilla plan because, well, I don't think it's really been discussed a ton. That's just how I imagine that they're going to get around that, just to make sure they know that, oh, these cards are the same. And when I'm talking Godzilla plan, I'm literally just talking about having 2 names on the Godzilla card. There are 2 names on Aragon.
Right.
Or Aragon's official, well, it'll have the name of Aragon, then right underneath it, it'll have the name of the Unknown King, which will be the official Magic card name. So I just think that's how they're going to take care of that.
Yeah. I think I recall them saying something about they're going to add them to the list within 6 months with a higher than average drop rate.
If that's the only reprint, that's not enough.
No, but
that's not enough at all.
It's only a problem if it's actually a desirable card. And so this goes back to Braden's initial question, which is, does the lower power level of AFR say anything about the lower power level that we might expect with some of these other IPs when they come out? And I think the answer is no. I think that the lower power level of AFR, and honestly, even the lower power level of Strixhaven, was a response to coming off of 2 years of War of the Spark and Dominaria and Throne of Eldraine. And probably the most powerful year of Magic any of us have seen in a long friggin' time. Like, I mean, I think the last cast that Mike and I did, we talked about how WotC created a whole new format on Arena just so that people could pretend to have rotated out Throne of Eldraine. Because you're either playing with Throne of Eldraine cards or you're doing it wrong. So they created Standard 2022 on Arena. And so I think that the lower power level that we're seeing in Strixhaven and Adventures in the Forgotten Realms is more of a response to that. I don't think that you're going to see necessarily a lower power level in those other IP products. Something that Jason had asked earlier, and I'm sure that he could look this up if he wanted, but we were talking specifically kind of about the Innistrad sets that are coming out, and there are 2 Innistrad sets that are coming out. There's Innistrad Midnight Hunt, which is coming right up here in September. I mean, that's like a week and 6 days or a week and 5 days. That's pretty quick. And then that is going to be followed up by our vampire set, Innistrad Crimson Vow, which I'm looking at again as a 2 large set block. And that comes out in November. So there's only going to be 2 months between the launch of the werewolf set, Crimson Hunt, or Midnight Hunt, and Crimson Vow.
It's really interesting.
It is really interesting.
I wonder if they've got feedback about blocks, about like just going back to the video that Professor made, just so like I don't take credit for it. Ravnica, and obviously we've been to Ravnica 3 times now, but having that block, man, everyone knows Ravnica. Even if you only went through it once, you know Ravnica. You had the block. You had 3 different sets. Like there was a lot of time to tell a story. Strixhaven, I couldn't tell you who the like what you had. Lordhold was red white. That's all I got. Kaldheim apparently had 10 different realms.
Oh yeah,
I couldn't name that. I remember they had the tree thing.
Yep.
The world tree. But like you lose so much lore that way. And I'm a guy that doesn't even read the story. Like I get it. But still, like even just having the blocks, I'm wondering if they've got that feedback and they want to do that because of that. Or if they just feel like they want to cram more sets into standard. Or if they just want to sell more product in general.
Yes, yes, and yes. Yes, yes, and yes. And I think that limiting themselves to saying that they're not going to do blocks anymore, when you come to a set like Innistrad that is so beloved, much like Ravnica, they have so much story that they want to tell. You know, they probably, if you think about it, if they're 250 card sets, you know, they probably had 800 cards that they would want to put out in Innistrad. And they've got to narrow it down to 250. Well, now they only have to narrow it down to 500. Speaking, though, of Kaldheim, I just want to recommend for anybody that is realizing that rotation is happening in a month. Those Kaldheim mythics like Halvar might not be a bad thing to start looking now at some of those that could easily double in 2 months. If we're a month away.
You're totally right. And like, I don't know how much people are playing standard and paper right now, but if you are, there's a lot that's going to jump because we talk about War of the Spark, we talk about Throne of Eldraine, we talk about, Dominaria's gone. But like, and actually I think War of the Spark might be gone
it's gone. Yeah.
But
can tell
Throne
you're not
of
a
Eldraine
player.
anyway.
Obviously you're not a golfer.
No. But like, Throne of Eldraine is like just an insane set, and once just even that itself rotates, there's a lot of holes in standard that a lot of these underpowered sets are going to have to prop up and fill. So I think you're right. I mean, if you want to look at what future decks look like, or even just come up with stuff, those mythics, pick them up. They're not playable now, but they will be in a month.
I don't want to call them snap this ups, but I got 3 cards as we're probably getting to a close here that I definitely want to bring to people's attention. Looking at MTG stocks and looking at all cards that are at their all-time low or all-time high. Ignoble Hierarch, the regular version from Modern Horizons 2, the Jund Noble, is at its all-time low so far. Obviously, you know, it makes sense that we would be getting there. I don't know how much lower it can get than $8.
Remember when Noble was like 60?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people like the color combination of Ignoble Hierarch even more.
Yep. And it's one print.
So in your vein of, I don't want to speculate to make money. I just want to play Modern on the cheap and be able to make whatever deck I want.
Buy 4 or 5 copies.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I think Village Rights from the Mystical Archive, the Japanese Village Rights from Strixhaven Mystical Archive is undervalued. That card is starting to see some Modern play in like black-white tokens decks that can get the card advantage for sacking a Lingering Souls token, or that.
And talk about with zombies coming out.
Yeah.
Card that would be very playable in that deck.
Very playable in that deck, where I'm just going to sack this, draw 2 cards, and then immediately get it back. And then my third card that I want people to think about is Collector Oof. Is strangely at an all-time high, but not strangely because that was not one of the cards that was reprinted as an old border card in Modern Horizons 2. So I think one of 2 things could happen. We could see a secret lair come out at some point that has some of the other MH1 staples in old border. But if we don't see that, Collector Oof is still a super solid sideboard card. I mean, it can do the same thing as Karn, but Karn costs 4 mana. So it's at an all-time high because people are playing it and the price isn't going down. If you don't have Collector Oofs, I'd get them. Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, so if we're going to talk, I am going to call these Snap This Ups.
Yes.
And I think these are just no-brainers. So early on in the podcast, if you're listening from the beginning, I talked about originally there being 3 decks of Modern. That is getting pushed out now. Finally, we're seeing some mid-range decks kick to place. Full credit to Aspiring Spike for coming up with the best one.
I know what you're talking about.
And there are 2 cards in that deck that are seeing a ton of play. And I'll start off with probably the more expensive one that is more obvious, but less profitable. And that's Omnath, Locus of Creation.
Oh, man. I already had it up on screen.
Card that's been incredible for a long time. I mean, obviously, it got banned in Standard. That hurt the value of it tremendously. And I don't have the MTG stocks up or anything. But I can only imagine it's probably been going down in value since then.
That's interesting. I bet it dipped right then and has started climbing back up because of its use in EDH.
EDH, yeah, you're right there. But actually, I'm looking at listings. It's very interesting. We'll get there in a second. Card that is being played as a 4 of in Modern. In these mid-range decks, and I think we finally found a home for it, besides EDH, where this is a very, very strong card. Oh, that's why. I clicked on the promo pack. Interesting. So the promo pack's actually the cheapest one, which didn't expect that. And it's so cheap that you can get foils for $10, or you can get a few foils for $10. Really cheap. Otherwise, if you want to go with normal ones, you're looking about $10 as well. Actually, I guess you're looking $10 for foils again. So it looks like a lot of people are buying these up right now. They're buying up the standard ones. So a lot of the foil ones that have been listed for a long time are sitting there. If you want non-foils like me, you're probably going to have to pay a little extra, unfortunately, or find them somewhere else. But I'm like TCG player, you can pick these up really cheap. The other card in that same deck.
I just want to point out, because I have it on I have MTG stocks up on the screen, and I'm looking at the price trend on Omnath Locus Creation. And it's interesting because it spiked back in October of 2020 and then sort of dropped off for a long time. The only place that I'm wondering when it actually got banned, and I would look at that date, but has stayed pretty stable until between June and now it has doubled. So you're spot on that we're catching the upswing right now. I think even at $10 a piece if you can get foils for $10 or $11 a piece, you're going to be
so
absolutely looking at this as a mythic that's going to be $25 or $30 in a year or two. So 100% on board with Omnath. What's your other pick?
Second one is, I mean, this is a no-brainer. Buy a ton of
Jenna?
copies. Brad showed me what he bought. I probably should have done what he did. But I got my copies. I get a bunch of extra copies. And that's another card in the same deck. And really what Aspiring Spike is naming the deck after, it's General Ferris Roderick, or Rockerick.
Mm-hmm.
3 mana, 3/1. Hexproof for monocolored is really good in Modern.
Yeah.
Aspiring Spike, and he's kind of corrected himself a little bit, but he still threw out the true name nemesis of Modern. There is very little that kills this. Ren of 6 does, interesting enough. But like very few cards, like removal spells that are played, kills this guy. And then whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a 4/4 red and white golem. This card's pennies.
Yeah. This card is absolute dirt cheap. It's a win con. It's an army and a can in the deck that you're going to put it in.
I think this is a $7 to $10 card.
Yep. It's a rare from a master set, basically. I'm on board with this. And one of the things that I caught some of the streams that he was doing with this deck, and one of the things that I like that he pointed out is this is hexproof for multicolor. It's not protection. Meaning, if you have this in, if you happen to have, what the hell am I thinking of? Snakeskin Veil or Ephemerate or anything else like that. Obviously those don't fall into the multicolor section, or like you can target this with your own stuff if you need to save it, or if you need to hit, if in order to win, you need to have they've got a ley line up. And so you Lightning Helix this to make a 4/4. You can do that. I guess that's a double color anyway. I'm losing my train of thought, but he really pointed out that it not being protection was in a sense better than just hexproof.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't attack and block like it has protection, but still, like, you have some things that you're allowed to do with it, which is kind of nice.
I love this idea. Obviously people have also talked about playing around with multicolored humans variants, where it's just like, if I can play this on 3 and the next turn, or play this on 3 and then Violin a Meddling Mage, make a 4/4, untap, cast a Reflector Mage, bounce your thing, make a 4/4, Violin my Mantis Rider, make a 4/4.
So unfortunately, when you Violin, you're not going to get the 4/4. It's only a cast trigger. But still, when you get to cast like your Meddling Mage, cast your the thing that bounces back to your hand, Reflector Mage, like, you're still going to get some value out of that for sure.
I mean, exactly. How many free 4/4s do you need to get when you're to win the game?
Now, I will say I did see Aspiring Spike. This is the last thing I'll say, and I'll move on. But I did see him cast 3 Metamorphos in a row after casting him, which was pretty disgusting. And I've also seen him cast, yeah, so we'll have him on the board. We'll play an Omnath, get a 4/4. We'll play a fetch land, fetch, get 4 more mana, cast something else, get another 4/4. Like, there's a lot of value in that deck. But like you said, you get 1 or 2 4/4s. Now you're getting 7 to 11 power for 3 mana. That's fine.
Was that Aspiring Spike that did that?
Yes. I do have 2 other.
Oh.
I'm not sure if they're ready. I mean, snap them up now, but I'm not sure how long you're going to have to sit on these. I've been playing a 5-color deck. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's really strong. I'm not sure if it's there yet.
What are we talking about?
So 2 cards for Modern Horizons 2 that care about domain, care about having 5 colors.
Yep.
Scion of Draco is if you have 5 colors of mana, which is pretty easy to do with a Triome and a Shockland on turn 2, is a 2 mana 4/4 flyer that gives a ton of keywords to a ton of other creatures. You get them for like $1.50, $2.
It's just stupid.
It's cheap, like you might have to sit on it for a long time.
I mean,
but it's cheap enough that like buying 4 copies and just putting in a box is pretty easy.
Of course, I'm trying to remember what the Modern Horizons 1 mythic was. There was a Modern Horizons 1 mythic that people just looked at and thought, what is the point of this card? And then a year and a half later, it was a deck. And I can't think of it for the life of me right now. But the bottom line is they didn't put a crappy card in that set. So if you have a $2 mythic from Modern Horizons 2, I'm 100% on board.
Then the last one, which is a pretty obvious one, is Territorial Kavu.
Yeah.
Another penny card. Again, if you have 5 mana, very easy to do in turn 2, or 5 basic land types, I should say. It's a 5/5 for 2. That's better than Goyf a lot of the times. And also says when it attacks, you can either rummage, or you can just exile a card from your opponent's graveyard.
Yeah. I mean, just incidental graveyard hate on a 5/5 on turn 3 is pretty good. No,
I would say pick them up, put them in a box. Eventually they'll hit.
Now I'm intrigued. I want to look at the original Modern Horizons because there's definitely. I got something up right now. Going through some stuff. You have Seasoned Pyromancer was a mythic. Oh yeah,
that was kind of big right off. Hextracker wasn't huge right off, but climbed pretty quick.
Yeah.
Ranger of Eos was huge right off the bat.
Yawgmoth is what I was thinking of.
Echo of Eons?
Yawgmoth is what I was thinking of.
Oh yeah, no, that's an entire deck.
Like it took a year, and then suddenly somebody was like, "Oh, this is really good with Young Wolf."
those Undying cards, or Undying, Undying.
Yeah.
I can't remember the difference.
Unbound Flourishing was another mythic that you could get for $2 when that set came out. You could get handfuls of them. That's about $8, between $5 and $8 right now.
Force of Vigor?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to talk
about Force of Negation, but Force of Vigor has climbed up recently. Archmage's Charm's worth money now.
Hey, it looks like my waterlogged groves are finally starting to pay off.
A lot of lands have gone way up.
Yeah. And so I think that like the lesson there is not to overlook something like Scion of Draco, which is an undercosted dollar-wise mythic. Like a mythic from this set has power. It's just a matter of finding it. I want to look at the other mythics in this set. The other thing is I feel like, there were more mythics in this set than in the other one because we did get the whole elemental cycle. We got the Cabal reprint. Man, let me look at these. I'm going to sort them by price. Garth One Eyes, dirt cheap. Throsta, Throsta Tempest Roar is the 10 green 7/7 dinosaur that costs 3 less for each other spell cast this turn. It has trample and haste and trample over planeswalkers and has hexproof as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. I saw an affinity list that was playing this. That was dirty. Fun.
That's dirty.
And it's like,
oh, gross.
Play 3 Memnites and Welding Jar, and you play this for green. It's pretty good. What else is it? Torok. That's another one, man. That's not a $3 card.
No, it's not.
A 2
And
mana.
I'm going to say real quick, there's two different types of cards, right? There's a card like Torok that just isn't seeing a lot of play now, but we know it's a really strong card.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a card like Thrasta that, like, you said the Affinity deck, but let's pretend that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
Like,
jank deck.
it's just waiting. It's the Mike Cooley ear to the ground. It is just waiting. Eventually, it's gonna get broken.
Yeah. Yeah, and people love big dumb dinos with a cost reduction mechanic.
Yeah.
So, like,
People play in EDH regardless.
these cards are not $3 cards. They're just not. It actually hurts me to see Turok as a $3 card.
Yep. Sanctifier and Vec, not a mythic. It's a rare. But that card's crazy underpriced.
So that's one. That's on my trade for everyone I can get list.
Yeah, should be.
And the cool thing about that card is if you can't decide which version you'd like, if you like the old border or the full, the borderless or the regular one, you can have every kind you want. You have a mile. I mean, this set is just packed with money. This will be, and they may be printing this into the ground, and I don't see it. But the Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, the green Urborg, I'm seeing it basically in every green commander deck.
Yep.
You can't have a rare that gets played in every green commander deck be less than $10. It's just, the math doesn't check out.
There's a lot of green commander decks out there.
There's a lot of green commander decks out there. I hadn't played actually in a couple weeks. I'd been so busy. I played Monday night, and I played, oh my God, my parade.
A couple Fridays ago.
Played the green Vorinclex, the new Vorinclex deck. And I played my Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, I think, on turn 2, and somebody played an Urborg on their turn 2. I was like, okay, the whole table has black and green now.
Yep.
That was pretty awesome. Anyway, I think this was a fun conversation. Thank you, man, for taking the time to come down and hang out. Looking forward to doing it next week as well. Wednesday nights, folks. Hopefully we can get people onto the schedule to come down and hang out with us. It took a little while to get people used to the earlier on Thursday. Now we're going to switch it to Wednesday nights, but I'm happy to be doing this live again with you, Andy.
Same.
And with that, we'll hit the band, cue the outro music. Braden says best of luck with the leg, Andy. We want you to heal up quick.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe button. If you know people that like to listen to dweebs talk about the value of Magic cards, feel free to share the podcast with them. If you don't like to look at me while I talk to you, you can download this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything like that. I personally consume a lot of audio podcasts, so I want people to know that even if you may find us on YouTube, you can find the audio version wherever you go. We love you, and we'll see you next week. Peace.